Okay, and this is just, it's not for broadcast.
Of
it's
course.
Just,
Yeah, notes.
print, so
Yeah.
the extraneous noise
Okay.
doesn't matter. So I'll ask you, first off, well, the big thing is the Project Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
So if there were a timeline between like 0, where everybody just had the idea, and then the 100%, which would be its completion, where along that timeline would that project be?
Well, I mean, it's a very audacious, ambitious project with lots of. Whether you're talking about moving the Spurs Arena into downtown, you talk about expansion or the construction
Yeah, thank you.
of a new
Thank you.
and secondary convention center hotel that would be over near St. Paul Square. Let's talk about what are you going to do from the Alamo Dome standpoint. Can you continue to upgrade it, or does that come down and it's rebuilt, right? But I would tell you, like, it's probably a 10-year project, but the first phase of it, over maybe the next 3 to 5 years, would be moving the Spurs Arena, into the location, of ITC, and that's 60 acres, not just the 14 acres that comprise the Institute of Texan Cultures. There's 60 acres of development associated with land and property around that. So
Yeah, did a little story about St. Paul Square, and,
Right.
and it always it was sort of cut off from the highway.
well, I think
You can't cut through highways.
right. Well, that's what they're talking about, the land bridge.
Oh, okay.
Right, that would
yeah.
connect the east side, to downtown.
Yeah.
And historically, the freeway systems, when we look at, obviously they're important from a transportation standpoint, but they're a barrier. And they're, when they were built,
Right.
they were probably racial barriers, and we've seen not a whole lot of development, right, east, nor have we seen a whole lot of development west of downtown where 35 and I-10 are. So whatever we can do to be able to inspire mobility, and get over that barrier, it's going to be incredibly helpful.
Because it sounds like you want to make San Antonio, and I was covering this for WOAI a lot, and it's now come to fruition, Lower Broadway being sort of a promenade.
Yes, right. Yeah, a
And,
gateway into downtown,
Yeah,
right?
And I was happy to find parking because I came very early in case I wouldn't. And
Yeah.
It was so nice to see the 2 hours.
Yes,
Lots of 2 hour slots
free 2-hour
available.
parking.
And so it sounds like the Project Marvel is sort of this big picture of trying to make San Antonio an urban.
Yes,
downtown.
I mean, I think, look, what I love about Project Marvel and a sports and entertainment district is I think if you were to have, obviously, the Spurs Arena on the near east side with the land bridge, and then you've got baseball on the near west side of downtown, you're bookending downtown with 2 sports venues, that different demographics regarding affordability in baseball. Who's going to a Spurs game? It could be a visitor that comes down and wants to go to a Spurs game that's happening. But I most love about the project is we are leaning into, I think, what has made us really great, which is hospitality.
Yeah.
So I think sports and entertainment makes complete sense because really, when we look at peer cities that have what they call central business districts,
Yeah.
they call them that because there's a lot of companies and corporations in downtown.
Yeah.
We don't really have a central business district.
No.
We have a central hotel or hospitality district. So, point being, let's take advantage of it and lean into it. And then what I think will happen is you'll have a lot of development in between those 2 bookends in downtown. You'll have more housing, and so we need people and density of people living in downtown because that creates a demand for.
There's always money because I remember covering so many transportation stories.
Right.
And trying to get, this is 2007 up to trying
Right.
to get people living in
Right.
and cutting down on the sprawl.
Right. Yes. And, we've seen obviously a lot of density in River North, right?
Yes, right.
Regarding multifamily, and it's inspired because density of people inspires demand for services, right? So what has sprung up over in River North as a result? Dog groomers, restaurants, gyms, probably a little grocery store or whatever. It could be at some point like a mini Target or something, drugstore.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why you need people, right? Because
Yeah.
they're like, I want it in my neighborhood. Yes.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I guess we do a lot of discussions with HEB then, because them being the only grocery store in town.
right, and Flores Market, I mean, that was during the decade of downtown when under Julian Castro that was inspired. Now, people are always like, we want something bigger, right? So I don't know what that looks like exactly, but from a decade of downtown standpoint, we got 10,000 housing units. We got a grocery store in downtown or near downtown.
Yeah.
But then you had a new council that came in, and everybody was like, downtown's gotten enough, right? Cut the spigot off. Like, we don't need to incentivize market rate housing anymore. But my feeling is, look, we never stop ideating, innovating, or investing in downtown, because it is the core, really, of our hospitality industry, sales tax, and
the river.
Yeah, the river. And when you look at the valuation and what downtown earns, right?
Yeah, I see.
I mean, it's good for the entire city.
Yeah, I see.
Right. Yeah.
The Riverwalk and the Alamos primarily.
Yeah, and we haven't even talked about the Alamo. When it opens in 27,
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have people that are going to be spending more time here, because it won't be a one and done 8.5 minute experience at the Alamo. It's going to be one that you're like, okay, we're going to spend time here, but that was really cool. I want to go back. So we need to spend the entire weekend like looking at the Alamo, right? So
I haven't been to the Phil Collins Museum.
yeah. So then you'll have visitors that are extending their stay as a result.
So I think the concentration is fine, at least for me. I think that giving San Antonio a cohesion like that isn't bad for any city.
Right.
A concentration, as long as you find ways of moving people around.
Well, yeah, because the big, right. Once you bring density of people, and really the big question marks that people have regarding Marvel, and they're being addressed, is parking, right, and transportation. How do you get in? How do you get out? So
if you're going to have an urban core.
Right, so there's a lot of work being done right now. Yeah, and we're doing a parking study at Centro that we just sent out an RFP for. So I talked to Randy about that.
Well, yeah, and I saw that, and I thought that was interesting too, because I saw about the bookends you talked about. And then you mentioned it was sort of like New York City, where people own a parking spot.
Right.
And it sounded like that.
Or
was
can
what you might be
reserve a
alluding
parking
to.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that an idea that is just sort of among all the other ideas?
Well, we want to do it.
Oh,
I mean, our board, Centro's board, one of our priorities was parking, right?
Yeah.
So we're delving into it in a very big way. So the idea, and there are a couple of different companies across the country that will automate parking lots, for a fee that you can reserve the spot. There's an app that you can do that. But the beauty of that, it reduces the intimidation factor. Into coming into
like
downtown.
Me coming down very
Exactly,
early
right?
for a space, and being very pleased and pleasantly surprised that the city wasn't combating me and trying to
Right,
find a
that
place
you
that
find
was
on the street
smart,
parking.
on a very honest mission, and all of a sudden everybody's making it so damn hard.
Right, and I think, from a River North perspective, what we have found is that, unlike the East Coast, where people are very accustomed to parking on the street, we're not so accustomed to that here. We look for a parking space or a parking lot. So part of offering free 2-hour parking is to get people accustomed to the fact, oh, yes, I can park on the street.
And so back to Project Marvel. Are you able to say any sort of timeline, just to sort of clear up the mist about how much fun it is to talk about it?
So I would tell you that we are probably looking at financing details, I would think April, May, around that timeline.
And that would be revealed to the public?
Yes, that'll be revealed to the public. Then there's going to be a lot of outreach, associated with it, meaning neighborhood associations, presentations, all of it, right? Because you have to answer, as somebody who's worked in politics, the question you have to answer is, what's in it for me? Because that's going to inspire somebody to vote yes, right? But then it would move to a referendum likely in November. And I don't know if that means there's public monies that will be used. I'm making an assumption that there will possibly have to be. But,
Is there a price tag yet?
well, I mean, they're talking about a Spurs arena probably is a $2.1 billion
That would probably
enterprise.
be the most expensive part of the
Yes.
whole thing, wouldn't
Right.
it be?
Yeah.
Because pleasing those guys, pleasing a sports team is always very, very costly.
Yeah, and you've got a professional franchise that
Yeah.
is playing in other cities that have really good
Yeah.
facilities.
And then they come home and they
Right.
get
Right,
mad.
right. So unfortunately, in the sports world, it's constant updates.
Is that where
Yeah.
most of the pressure comes for this project? I mean, it'd be fair
I
to
don't
say,
know.
considering-
I mean, I definitely think that it
Where
was.
most of the
I
support-
definitely think that it was a pain point, right?
yeah.
That inspired conversations with the Spurs, and the city inspired a bigger vision if the
see.
Spurs were to come
So that
back
was sort of the
downtown.
prompt in a
Yes, yes.
And the mission's less.
Right.
Even though it would be nice because they're way out
Right,
on the
right,
side.
right. And obviously some controversy associated with displacement of people and housing, and I think we're doing a good job.
Came up with the idea of Project Marvel. Is that was it city officials? Was it developers? Was it?
I mean, I think it was likely the city. I mean,
Yeah.
as they were planning and don't want things released, they name a project, right, to keep it kind of undercover.
Start under the city planning department, or is it a much bigger sort of consortium?
Well, I mean, I'm sure Marvel came to be with, okay, if we really do want to move the Spurs downtown,
It started with that.
the city,
Yeah, I
right?
see.
The city says, okay, let's hire a consultant. To take a look at other cities, benchmarking, what could we do here, and if we're going to do it, let's think bigger
What else can we
versus
do?
smaller.
Right,
What else
right,
can we do?
Because
So,
usually when you start off with something like that, all of a sudden, all the visions start
Right,
growing up,
right.
and then ideas getting added on. It's like when you start fixing a small part of the house.
Right,
pretty soon
exactly.
you
You're like,
the
but
whole
we should
house.
do that, but we
Yeah.
should do that,
Right, right. I
right?
think that's just sort of human nature.
Yes.
And then you want more housing downtown.
Yeah. Well, and we have such a robust tourism base. Yeah. So, but it would be much like we have in River North.
Yeah,
we
River
want.
North is actually quite nice. I remember
It's beautiful.
in '08 or something them dredging it.
Yeah.
Doing all of that.
Well, and I mean, Avenue B has come back to life.
Yeah.
Avenue B and Jones used to be, to your point, the
Yeah.
museum, and then you have the VFW Hall.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
we just unveiled a mural at the VFW Hall 2 weeks ago. A military mural, and it's just amazing to stand in that parking lot and look at all of the multifamily that is developed
Exactly,
around
that's
it,
what I meant,
right?
that,
It's yes,
The museum's sort of
Right.
reduced almost.
Yeah.
Only I had a different perspective, but
But,
and
else-
even Newell Street.
Oh,
I went
yeah.
down to go visit a friend, and the little crappy little Newell Street.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden the gentrification, and then Dr. Vincent explained that Dr. Michael.
right,
sorry.
right. It's hard when there's two first names,
Yeah,
right?
It's going all the way down to SAC, which it
Right.
is, and all of that.
Right.
So, I mean, it's really been incredible. But San Antonio was traditionally inexpensive. It was cheap.
Right.
I can see why the developers all piled in.
Well, and I think from a housing ecosystem in downtown, yes, we need affordable, we need deeply affordable, we need market rate, we need student housing, we need workforce housing, we need luxury. When you look at major cities and their downtown and their urban cores, where they're humming, right? It is housing on all levels.
Yeah.
Because the beauty associated with that is, I mean, you might have a mixed income, obviously, apartment unit that's got a percentage of affordability, right? But then it's got market rate, maybe on the upper floors. The organic conversations that are inspired by that, right? For folks that want better, aspirational dreams, right? Like, it's amazing connectivity. Yeah. And if you have only affordable and deeply affordable, what will happen is when the markets come back, and obviously probably not before COVID, but when interest rates and cost of materials and that come back, you're going to have market rate developers, and not just local ones, but national ones that come in and then buy the affordable and deeply affordable.
Yeah.
And then turn it into market rate. And then we're stuck in the same game, right?
Right,
We don't
right,
have
right,
enough
right,
affordable, right?
Making it more democratic.
Right. So we know, like I said, the secret sauce in the recipe regarding success and housing in downtown is housing of all types. Yes.
Yeah, that's very nice.
Right.
I always felt safe during COVID with the city government that we have, with the mayor.
Yes, right.
And I loved it was always at 6:15 or 14.
Oh, yeah.
It was 6:13 or 14.
Right. You got your update.
And I felt very good about it. So I imagine you'd like to see sort of a continuity in mayorship. I can't remember how many terms he's had, but
He's out.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he's termed out,
But
and
you need some sort of continuity and leadership. If
Well,
you're gonna continue the
I
trajectory
think,
that
yeah,
the
for
center is
sure,
on.
right. So I think it's a very
But
crowded.
everybody's probably on
So
board.
Mayor Nuremberg is termed out.
Yeah, okay.
So we have a very crowded field for who the next mayor is. So we have 3 city council people that are running.
Yeah.
So when I talk about the sea change on the dais in November, you'll have a new mayor and you'll have like 4 new council people.
So is that something you have to consider with
Yes.
this project? But
Right.
projects like this usually do get the green light or the go-ahead.
Yeah.
They usually do come about, don't
Yeah, I mean, they do, but the exercise is you have to educate people.
Yeah.
I mean, as somebody who has a campaign background, right, I've
Yeah.
managed races, been a candidate myself, that outreach is so important to be able to talk to people, let them ask questions, figure out what their pain points are, but how do they define success for the project? And so, as we look at Project Marvel today, what goes on the ballot in November, as a result of that outreach,
It'd be a referendum.
it may change a little bit based upon feedback, but
I
that
see.
becomes really important,
Yeah.
right? So,
Because you do need to please people
Right.
and not have an uproar.
right.
So, when would you like to see ground broken on it?
Well, I mean, I'd like to see a referendum in November,
yeah,
right? Once
yeah.
we've got all the details
Okay, so
associated
then
with it.
referendum,
Right,
and
right.
Then you'll know for sure.
Yeah, right. And then we go to what does a groundbreaking phase
Yeah,
look like,
okay.
right? But I
Then
think
it's a
you,
done deal.
yeah, but I think, you could have depending on demolition of ITC, right? What that looks like, but you could have a groundbreaking likely within a year. Yeah.
I bet you're gonna have people showing up and sort of sobbing on that.
Yeah. It's funny. It depends on who you talk to. There's some people that think it's very historic, and then you talk to other people that are preservationists that really don't think it is. So it's a mix. So, but it's been a landmark for so long.
I know.
Right?
Like and it's the mid-century architecture.
Yes.
The natives, and then the John Wood. I think that was saved,
Right.
right?
It is.
Yeah.
It's going to become a special event center.
Yeah. So last couple of questions. One question I do have is, I understand about making cities great and visions and big projects and all of that. But I wonder about the roads, the basic things. I know that Broadway is being resurfaced, but the twin evils of San Antonio, as I remember, were the pet overpopulation problem, which we seem to have gotten a handle on.
Right.
But the roads are still so bad.
Oh yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah, we have a lot of work.
Can that be made a priority?
So-
as that's a basic challenge
it's
for
basic city
every
service.
San Antonio. Yeah, it's not for the tourists, but for the residents.
Yeah,
who
well,
have
the good
to
news
travel.
is we have a 27 bond election coming. So, yeah. And our bond elections of late have been big, right? So, a priority with bond elections are always going to be road projects. So, yeah. So,
I think so, because even north of Bronxville that I go up and down, it's just the crappiest road in the entire.
well, I live right off North New Braunfels and Eisenhower.
Yeah.
So if you
There's a
make- so if
section
you
right
make it-
there,
so if
and
you
it's
make
got a pool with the banana leaves and all of that, and it's right there, and then the lines of Ron and everything.
No, if
So
you make a right on Eisenhower of North New Braunfels, it's like, boom. I've talked to Mark
Yeah.
White. I'm like, when are you going to fix that road?
Yeah, exactly. And these are traveled daily by
Yes.
more people. And
Yes.
So that was my question. Is it seems like they're not as exciting, but it should.
But they're
be nice.
necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So will the city take?
Yeah,
that
no, I will. I
seriously?
think, infrastructure is always going to be incredibly important. That means roads.
I think so.
And as we look at Texas not shrinking regarding population size, and I think San Antonio becoming very, very attractive, as well as our surrounding areas like New Braunfels, Seguin, etc. Quality of life, I think, is better here than any other major city in Texas. Yeah, so we're going to have no shortage of people over the next 20 to 25 years, so we have to keep up.
So last couple of questions.
Yeah.
Would that include would San Antonio finally get on the bandwagon when it comes to, little trains? Because I interviewed Nelson Wolf years ago, and he said, it was terrible how 100 years ago they had the trolley cars, and we ripped them all up. Of course, you can't see 100 years into the future often, but he thought that was sad, because having the little trains, as they do in Houston.
Right.
Moving people around so you can cut down on the cars. That seems to be a trend or a wish among.
Well, so the VIA has their ART lines that are going to go north and south through downtown. So those will be like a way to be able to get on a track, right? And they move. So yeah.
So they are.
Oh no! They have federal funding for it. Like it's going.
And when would something like that happen?
So. The first ART line, I think,
and what's the ART?
It's Advanced Rapid Transit.
Okay.
I would
not a bus, is it?
No, it's a train.
Okay.
Like it's a.
Like the little neat little things that Houston has.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like a little above ground.
Yes.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, I would tell you to go onto VIA's website.
Okay.
And look at it.
Okay.
Yeah, because they probably have a timeline.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's coming.
So that's coming, which is good. Right.
That seems essential to ease
Hey, how are you? Good to see you. Yeah.
All of that. And traffic and all that.
Yes.
And then the last question I would have.
And then we're also like micromobility in downtown. We've got electronic golf carts that are shuttling people all over so that you only park once.
That's right, I saw that.
Right.
I saw that.
Yeah.
It
So
seemed like the little scooters sort of were a little.
they kind of got. I mean, you still see them.
Yeah, you see them, but they didn't. Because when something new hits, it's all the rage.
Right.
And then the last question was, since you are native, what would you compare the transformation going on now? Would the last great transformation have been Hemisphere?
Yeah, I think so, especially for downtown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what would you say? Do you have any sort of percentage in terms of growth, or not the people necessarily, but in terms of if you had to quantify what we're seeing now? Are we? I don't know how to put a percentage on it, but I guess saying that Hemisphere is the last great.
Well, it was the last, I think. Look, I think there was Hemisphere. I think there was the decade of downtown, so we did Inspire, and that was during Julian Castro's mayorship.
Oh no, that's something else, but it's something similar.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
Same idea.
Yeah, so and that was during Julian Castro's mayorship.
Yeah,
so that was. So there was Hemisphere, and then the decade of downtown, right?
Yeah.
So that inspired 10,000 housing units, which was important.
Yeah.
Incentives of the city to be able to inspire those housing units.
Yeah.
And then we've had really kind of 10 to 15 years where everybody was like, aside from COVID, like downtown's got enough and we don't need any more. But I would tell you, this transformation regarding downtown is even bigger than what the decade of downtown was before, which is so exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think long term, what it will also inspire is not just more people living in downtown, but I think corporations that have bypassed downtown San Antonio as a headquarters opportunity will then begin to look at downtown and realize, okay, there's housing for my employees to live in. There's lots of amenities and entertainment options for people to go to. And so then they may look and go, you know what?
Yeah.
There's new energy in downtown San Antonio, so now we want to start taking another look at it.
This is very important because I think I remember 10, 15 years ago, AT&T.
Well, wait, 20 years ago.
Oh, was it 20?
Yeah, it's hard to believe it's been that long.
Yeah. Okay.
And we've never replaced
and
it.
that was a big sort of psychological blow.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
and we've never replaced it.
No.
Yeah. So that's why I talk about we really don't have a central business district.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I can't think of anything else to ask you.
No, I just was going to say
You're probably excited about.
Oh, very excited. Very excited. But the other linchpin, I think, in the whole transformation is not just Marvel and baseball and the Alamo, but what UTSA's investment is in downtown. It's huge. Yeah. And now with the merger between UT Health and UTSA, I think there's even more opportunity for what could happen in downtown. Yeah, regarding that. Meaning degree programs, I think, will increase. You'll have a bigger student population that's downtown. Again, young people and density drive, right? An ecosystem of services. Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing is, when I see that, I just think, of course, you can't do anything about that. You know, highways always cut
Right.
off a thing, and I always think of UTSA over there near the jail.
Yeah.
You know, sort of.
Well, you know, when I ran for judge, I wanted to move that trail. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember you ran for mayor.
Yeah. But my hope is that maybe with so much happening that at some point maybe we can move the jail. Yeah.
Is there room for growth? Physical growth.
There's a huge room for growth. Yeah. Huge room for growth. Yeah.
Well, you know, I guess if the people who own a sort of an old little crumbly house are paid fairly, the city can expand. Would you say that's part of the urban
and I think what we have to be able to do is we've got to be so gentrification in and of itself is not a bad word. Gentrification is a good thing. It's displacement of people.
Yeah, that's right.
That's bad. So we have to figure out a way to be able to keep people in their homes. Yeah, where
Because that's what Ian Payne, I interviewed
property
as
taxes
well.
aren't skyrocketing and forces them to leave.
That's
But
right. That has been sort
yeah,
of
but there should be, and there, like the legislature should take this on, right? There's been something called the Legacy Bill, which would said, if you live in an area that's been gentrified and your property taxes have gone up by X percentage point, like your property taxes are frozen.
Oh,
Like,
that's
Yeah.
So they really recognize.
yes,
I
yeah.
guess they've had to because it's really been a bone of
Right,
contention.
right. But we haven't had success in getting it passed. But with the emphasis by the governor on
That?
property taxes, and we understand that this is not just happening in San Antonio, but every city in Texas, right?
Is growing so
Yeah.
quickly that he probably had to.
Right.
address it.
So my hope would be that, I mean, that's, I think one of the bigger questions associated with redevelopment and gentrification is coming up with a policy that keeps people in their
I would
homes.
say so because San Antonio, Bear County is traditionally a lower income
Right.
place
So we have to.
go blowing through it,
Right.
you know, with all those sort of bewildered homeowners.
Yeah, and you've had people that have lived in their homes 3-4 generations, right? So with the taxes skyrocketing and forcing them to leave is not fair.
No,
So
it's not.
so elected officials and policymakers have to dig in on that subject.
I would say so because then you eat at the
Yes.
fiber of the
Right. Yeah, it's with
of
the
whole-
character.
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Yeah, San Antonio really is known for that. You
Yeah.
can't clean it up
No.
too much.
No.
Otherwise,
Yeah, which is why we don't
you'll
want,
lose the.
despite what's happening, regarding downtown, I say this, like, downtown San Antonio has a soul, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
palpable because of 300 years of history and architecture and culture, like, unlike any other city in Texas or, or possibly in the country. So we have soul,
Yeah.
but hopefully what we're doing now, right, regarding Project Marvel, UTSA's investment, the focus on downtown and Centro's job is to revive the heartbeat. Yeah, so,
Keep it going.
right, so.
Because it already is. It's there.
Yes.
It's